It's award seasons, and one of the central figures of said adulation season is right now Robert Downey Jr., as he's finally getting his flowers because he pulled off an absolute stormer in Oppenheimer. And well, he's kind of sweeping every award that he's been nominated for, the Golden Globes, now the BAFTAs, and everybody's just kind of waiting with anticipation. Is he finally going to be able to pull back another Oscar? Well, we'll have to wait and see. March 10th is just around the corner, but everybody is looking over, especially the post-jail, his redemption arc in Hollywood, with fond memories. A lot of people are showering him with, adequate praise. Especially his director on Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan, calls Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man one of the most consequential casting decisions that has ever been made in movie history. I got a couple of ideas behind this, but I want to hear Nolan's input on that very salacious and quite possibly very accurate quote. Christopher Nolan appeared on The Late Show for a lengthy discussion with Stephen Colbert, in which the filmmaker heaped praise on his Oppenheimer star, Robert Downey Jr., who is widely considered the Oscar frontrunner for Best Supporting Actor. Nolan said that he always wanted to work with Downey because of his generosity and charisma. The director went on to call Robert Downey's role as Iron Man, which birthed the Marvel Cinematic Universe and carried it for a decade, as one of the most important casting decisions ever made. And if that's what he's talking to, the fact that he was basically the face and still is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the fact that it became off of the back of the little project that could, all the way back in 2008, ended up creating the most lucrative, financially successful cinematic franchise in history. Yeah, no, definitely gets his flowers for that. Anybody you work with actors, you're looking for some kind of connection emotionally, empathetically. You're looking for some kind of generosity. He has this incredible generosity of spirit. It means when he's in a scene with other people, he's making sure they're all doing their best and they're all able to bring their best to the table. He's helping them clarify those emotional connections. I've always wanted to work with him. I've always seen him in his work. And Nolan added, and there's such a charisma as Tony Stark. Him playing Iron Man is one of the most consequential casting decisions that's ever been made in the history of the movie business. I wanted to give him the opportunity to lose himself in a part, lose himself in another human being, the way great actors love. Oh, him. Okay. Downey is more or less looking for an opportunity too. In an interview with the New York Times Magazine last summer, he admitted that he was concerned that his acting chops might be at risk while playing Iron Man for 11 years in the MCU. Actor debuted, yes, in 2008's Iron Man, and then was yeeted in 2019's Endgame in a decision that obviously Disney Marvel is vociferously regretting. You start to wonder if a muscle you have hasn't atrophied, Downey said about the risk of playing the same character for over a decade. Yeah, because, Tony Stark is ostensibly Robert Downey Jr. That's what it made it such genius casting. And then also, even though it was a risk at the time, I remember, I crystal clear remember when the announcement was made. I heard it over the radio back when you'd wake up. We'd wake up back in the day. You'd have the alarm clock. You'd have the radio alarm clock combination. You could either wake up the dulcet sounds of your local DJ or to the, blaring sirens if you were so inclined. But one of the lead stories of the 7 o'clock news was Marvel is going to be bringing the Iron Man character to the screen, and with a strange casting decision, the recently released from jail Robert Downey Jr. This is really going to be his last chance to do good in Hollywood, and well, we'll have to see when it ultimately comes to theaters in a couple years' time. I remember that crystal clear. I remember exactly where I was when I was waking up, what time of year it was. Yeah, everybody was looking at it and just hoping with bated breath that it would be decent, but you didn't anticipate, quite possibly, at least on the Marvel side of things, the best superhero film. Definitely not a stretch to say. But yeah, he took on that persona for 11 years, and well, the character so well inside and out that having to adapt to another role, take on a new persona after just simply playing that. And he also did branch out and did I like them, but the Sherlock Holmes films, and even still, that was still kind of Tony Stark playing the timeless British detective. They're good films, but kind of Tony Holmes or Sherlock Stark, if we're being completely honest. When asked if he has any concerns about the effects of playing Iron Man for 11 years might have on his acting, Downey replied, yes, 100%. I knew that there was a point where Christopher Nolan was endorsing, let's work those other muscles, but let's do it while rendering you devoid of your usual go-to things. Well, no, fair enough, man. Now, not that Downey isn't proud of his work in the Iron Man movies. Oh boy, he said on Rob Lowe's Literally podcast last month. I think we talked about this. I remember doing something in regards to this interview, but Tony Stark, Iron Man, marked some of the best acting of his career, but it went a little bit unnoticed because of the genre. 1000%, man, because a lot of people are just gonna like the original Iron Man from 2008 as much as they like the rest of the Iron Man sequels, which Iron Man 2 is passable, but Iron Man 3 is the movie that just put me off of new cinema, full stop, complete and total train wreck. But then you'll have same people that think that the quality that Marvel has been putting out in Phase 4 and Phase 5 is just as good as what they were doing, bro. It's still peak fire from the halcyon days of Phase 3, and then it's probably even better than some of that old stuff because the CGI has gotten better, bro. It's all peak fire. No, when you had RDJ down there acting his balls off in the cave in the desert, and then also clinging to life after he was being found by Pepper Potts in order to try to put the reactor back in his chest. I remember so much about that film that I haven't seen in a very long time. It's because the performance was so goddamn good. And yeah, what started off as being a well-regarded film just ended up becoming and getting swept up in what would end up being known and is now widely accepted as being Marvel sludge. So yeah, he has a reason to be concerned, but it's kind of strange now that he's getting all this adulation that he's more than willing to throw some of his more well-regarded and is obviously his most famous performance completely under the bus. I don't know what to think about this. I'm of two minds when it comes to this. But Robert Downey Jr. thanks that dude Christopher Nolan in BAFTA speech. He suggested I attempt to understand approach to resurrect my dwindling credibility. Okay. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, Robert? After winning the Best Supporting Actor at the BAFTAs for his performance in Oppenheimer, Robert Downey Jr. took it to the stage to reflect on his career and shout out that dude, Christopher Nolan. When I was 15, I wanted to be Peter O'Toole. When I was 25, I worked with Richard Attenborough and Anthony Hopkins. When I was 35, I finally understood why Dickie thought Tony would be a better role model for me than Peter. Downey said, when I was 42, I did 2 films for Guy Ritchie and learned how to make big Hollywood movies with a civil British flair. I did 2 Guy Ritchie films just before he popped off big with Marvel. I then played a guy named Tony in the MCU for about 12 years. He continued, and then recently that dude named Chris Nolan suggested I attempt to understand the approach as a last-ditch effort to perhaps resurrect my dwindling credibility. See, the way that he's glossing over everything, I seen the headline that was cut out that he just refers to playing Tony Stark as just being that guy named Tony. Kind of thought that there was more context to that, and the way that he's brushing over names like Richard Attenborough, Anthony Hopkins, Peter O'Toole is just Pete and Dickie and Tony, and it's like just playing this guy named Tony. Obviously more to that, but his dwindling credibility, like even at his exit, Endgame, his official exit from the MCU, at least for the time being, until the money truck rolls up, because I don't really know if this is a negotiation ploy right now with him, at least amongst his peers at the height of his credibility, I would say, still in the zeitgeist, still referred to and still known as being Tony Stark, being the face of the MCU, because, well, in the previous going on 5 years now, Disney, Marvel, has failed to replace him in any meaningful sense. They just thrown a bunch of characters at the screen, seeing what sticks, but most of them just kind of splat like a turd and just kind of slowly roll down the wall because everything else is, well, of equivalent quality. Don't worry, guys. Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards is really going to set the world on fire. I'm sure of it. But you heard all of those rumors from about 6 months ago that Disney's desperate for some relevance. They're seeing the dwindling box office numbers. Hell, the whole Kang situation going up in smoke, that they're trying to get back Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, and RDJ, and there were also rumors that, yep, he's already signed on the bottom line. They're just waiting to back up the Brinks truck. I just wonder, I just wonder, given the fact that he still has the, the people on his side. Now he has his peers. He's got them at the height of their attention. Now he can try to diminish the MCU. Don't know if this is a ploy. Don't know if this is a play. Don't know if this is just a warning shot that nobody, don't sign up for that stuff. It's going to kill you creatively. Don't know what the long-term game on this is, or it's just him at the peak of his Downey Jr. powers, just up there on stage throwing haymakers. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, perhaps. In Nolan's epic biopic of J. Robert Oppenheimer, who created the world's first atomic bomb. Yes, and he also became Death, destroyer of worlds. That line wasn't in it. Downey played Strauss, a high-ranking member of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, who became hostile to Oppenheimer and sought to prove that he was disloyal to the United States. Downey Jr. previously won a Best Actor BAFTA for Chaplin back in 1992. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Yes, in Tropic Thunder in 2009. Yes, Downey Jr. was up against Robert De Niro. I was the killer of the Flower Moon. Jacob E. The cum licker from Saltburn, Ryan Gosling from Barbie, oh my Christ, Paul Mescal from All of Us Are Stragglers or Strangers, whatever, and Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers. Yeah, I hear good things about one of those films. I hear The Holdovers is pretty good, but the rest of those, come on, man. Much as I like Scorsese, I don't think that Killers of the Flower Moon is going to be up there in the pantheon of the likes of Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, Casino, Goodfellas, list goes on and on and on. I'm not a big fan of his 21st century output. The Departed is vastly overrated, and I haven't even bothered to watch Wolf of Wall Street. Not a big Leo guy, but I am a big Robert Downey Jr. guy because I think he's immensely talented. I just want to know what the long game is on this one because, yeah, you brought people a lot of joy. You did some self-professed, really great acting as your role, and then to just try to throw it by the wayside, is this just trying to get out ahead of the fact that everybody's going to be jettisoning the superhero genre in the very near future? Perhaps, or is this just a leverage ploy in order to try to, bank in and rake in the maximum amount of cash? Don't know, man. 2024 is going to be an interesting time, especially from behind the scenes on the financial side of the aisle. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.